All right, what's going on? We're going to talk about the ascension of the queens of ancient Egypt. Yeah, we're going to get right into it. The ascension of the queens of ancient Egypt. You listen to King Cam Ujumbe Podcast. Ujumbe means message. And we are in our Queens of the South series. And the book we're going to use is the first female pharaoh, Sobekneferu, the goddess of the seven stars. And the link is in the description. And so we're going to get into the ascension of the queens of ancient Egypt because in his book, in Andrew Collins' book, the first female pharaoh, he goes into the life and reign of Sobekneferu, Egypt's first confirmed pharaoh, female pharaoh, first confirmed. We have some hearsay about as to uh, who was a female pharaoh before her. There are some questions about that, but on record, this is the first confirmed female pharaoh. And so in chapters 3 and 4, they're important to get a understanding as far as her ascent to power and the challenges she faced. And so we got a few questions. We got a few questions. All right. Questions are, how did they become queens? How did Queen Sobekneferu become a king? And as I was reading, I started to realize it gets kind of sticky. It gets kind of interesting. Was there a murder plot? All right. And was the priesthood involved? Either way, was there initiation process? If you're enjoying this content, don't forget to subscribe. Let's go. All right. Now, in this in this episode, we're going to highlight chapters 3 and 4 of the book. And in order for somebody to ascend to the throne in Egypt, there was a royal lineage or bloodline involved. You had to be born into this or married into it, like married to the pharaoh, king or queen, right? The role of the priesthood in queenship. We're going to try to answer a few questions and we're going to give some special shout outs because, the fam is really pouring in and really adding value to the discussion. All right. So, chapter 2, we did that last time. Chapter 2, the ruler of the two lands. This is a little recap. And we broke her name down in Medu Neter. Check it out. See the forgotten pharaohs of Egypt. Check that video out. And chapter 2, highlights Sobekneferu's architectural contributions, particularly in the Fayum region. There's something about that area that resonated with her, that really connected with her. All right. And so she is credited with completing her father's projects and initiating new constructions that emphasize her devotion to the crocodile god Sobek. Now, where was her seat of power? Yeah, where was her seat of power? Because traditionally we would naturally assume the seat of power, and I gotta admit I always believed and thought that the seat of power was in Thebes, Thebes, Thebes or Waset. No, the seat of power was in Memphis. Yeah, it there was two capitals, okay? There was two capitals. One in Waset or Thebes, and then the other one which is in Upper Egypt, which is in the south. And then there was another capital which is Memphis, that is Lower Egypt in the north. I know we'll talk about the geography later, but the Memphis is the capital of Lower Egypt. The original name, this is what I learned, y'all. Check this out. I learned this. The original name for Memphis was the original name for the city was Eneb Hedge. Eneb Hedge, which means white walls. And it was the first known in Lower Egypt. It was, to my understanding, it was founded by Menes, King Menes, the very first pharaoh of Egypt, uniting Egypt. And it's also called Men Nefer. Okay, so Memphis is the capital of Lower Egypt. The original name is Eneb Hedge. It was the first nome of Lower Egypt, and it's also called Men Nefer. But we're going to break this down. We're going to get into it. All right. Now, the Old Kingdom. This is the Medu Neter. Okay, this is Memphis in Medu Neter or hieroglyphics, right? It's called Jed Suit. Okay, Jed Suit, everlasting places, right? So whenever you see a tower looking figure like that, that basically means established, Okay, it means some kind of structure, long lasting. And whenever you see a circle with a little X on the inside of that, means it is a city or a place. Okay, all right. So when you see that tower, okay, that it means it's established, it is firm. Okay, and whenever you see that circle with an X on the inside of it, that means that that location is a city. Okay, so in the Old Kingdom they call it Jed Suut. Okay, and in the Middle Kingdom, get this, it is called Anktawi, Anktawi, the place where the two lands live. Okay, so you see that line with three dots. When you see the line with three dots, that is a land. Okay, and you see the Ankh there, which means life. Okay, the place where two lands live, Anktawi. So Old Kingdom Jed Suut. Okay, the Middle Kingdom Aktawi. Okay, and then we got to go further though. We got to go further. Memphis, also known as Men Nefer. Okay, enduring and beautiful. Whenever you hear names like Nefertari, whenever you hear the word Nefer, it means beautiful. Okay, and also when you hear the word, by the way, when you hear the word Mary, that means beloved. Okay, it's for free. But as you notice, that's that circle with the X. That means that Memphis is a place. Men Nefer. But then I was like, I know I heard another name for it. And the other name for it is Hetkapata. Hetkapata, the house of the soul of Ptah. Okay, Ptah basically is symbolic of creation, rebirth, and change. Het, the house, Ka, the soul, and Ptah. So when you hear Het Haru, or whenever you say Het, that means it is a house or a location, but it is a house. Okay, Het, house, Ka, Ptah, the house of creation, the house of rebirth and change. Okay. But the thing is, we always got to be like that. We always got to always change and get and do things better and get things done and change things for the better. So, but like I said, if you are enjoying this content, like and subscribe for more, okay? Because we're about to get into it. Now, the Fayum region, the Fayum region, let me get to it. The Fayum region is located, like I said, in northern part of Egypt or Lower Egypt. Okay, and you see the Fayum Oasis here. Okay, and you see Men Nefer, and you see the breakdown Men Nefer, right? And so, and but the overarching, the overall name of this place is Tamari, Tamawu, or Tamari. Okay. So you see Ta, which is land, Mary, beloved. And then of course you see the circle with the X that is means it's a beloved place. Okay. I got a question. When people meet you, when people encounter you, do they think of that you are a beloved person, or wherever you are, your place is full of love and kindness? Hmm? Comment below. Let me know. But yes, the Fayum Oasis, and so they're right close to Lake Morris or whatever. But I still don't understand that. How are you going to name an ancient Egyptian, an ancient Kemetic lake with a Greek name? Okay, so but her seat of power is in Memphis. I think I kind of get back to it now. So let's get to part one, that's chapter three, because this book is broken into 8 parts, okay, and it has chapters in them. So I encourage you guys to read ahead so we can go ahead and go through the content, go through the information together. All right, but yeah, part one, chapter three is Sobekneferu, the story as we know it, the story as we know it. Okay, and so in this chapter Collins, he explores the circumstances leading to Sobekneferu's unprecedented rise to the throne. Born into the 12th dynasty, she was the daughter of Pharaoh Amen Imhat. Amen Imhat. Basically, Amen Imhat means Amun in front. That's going to be a very important point because, like I said, there are some people that really believe that. Okay, Amen M. Hat. That was his name. So her path to rulership was unconventional, primarily due to the lack of male heir following the death of her brother. Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Her father died after 45 years of being in power. Okay, this is the book. Okay, And then her brother dies 9 years into his reign. So this vacuum presented Sobekneferu with a unique opportunity to assert her claim. So let's get to the book. Let's see the book. I think it's in on page 27. Okay, page 27. It says it's not known whether Amenem had entered into co-regency with Sobekneferu. So no inscriptions or monuments suggest as such, although some scholars have proposed this possibility. I don't know what happened to her brother. Yeah, I told you it's gonna get sticky. I want to know what happened to her brother. Okay, you hear the song from the new Lion King movie. They always talk about their brother or whatever. But what happened to her brother? Okay, what happened? All right, so because see, she was almost certainly the daughter of Amenemhat. So the matter of fact, the Turin Canon mentions this. So the Turin Canon mentioned the fact that her father ruled for 45 years and then her brother ruled for 9. But yeah, something happened. Okay. So what we do know is that, according to the book, what we do know is Sobekneferu's brief reign was brought to a close not only in the 12th of the ancient Egyptian history, but also, according to some scholars, the entire Middle Kingdom, which is up until that time. So she came in she came through a major transitional period, but it's getting really foggy. I'm not sure about you, but you guys are very intelligent and you guys could put two and two together. I still want to know what happened to her brother. All right. So Collins suggests that the interim, I'm sorry, the internal political dynamics played a significant role in her ascension. The 12th dynasty was marked by a centralized administration, and the absence of a clear successor could have led to instability. Yeah, it because if you read it, there were the kings of the 12th to 13th dynasty also reestablished dynastic relationship with Thebes and its cult of the god Amun, making the city a secondary seat of power. Instability. So this was during a time where a lot of factions and a lot of groups were trying to corner the market, trying to hold sway. They tried to maintain order or regain order or get their resources, right? So this is so Beckneferu, her family, the royal court, all of this was part of that instability. Okay. Her royal lineage and her father's legacy provided her with the legitimacy needed to claim the throne, but was she going to be able to keep it? By right, she was confirmed Pharaoh, but can you keep that though? Her reign, though brief, was crucial in maintaining the continuity during a potentially tumultuous period. So I got a question now. I got a question about her brother and why was her reign brief? Okay, her father reigned for 45 years, no problem. Her brother, 9 years, just like that. And then hers was, according to the book, 3 years and 10 months and so many days. What do y'all think? Something happened. Something went down. Okay. So the question, somebody asked me a question, or the family asked me a question. Why do you disagree with Andrew Collins? Well, the reason why I disagree with him because I like the book, but I disagree because it's very Eurocentric. Okay. Granted, coming from that person, I get it, I understand, but it does have a tint of European in it. So, but it is what it is, right? So it does show that he keeps saying male dominated or male majority or patrilineal things like that, where we know in Africa and in African custom, the women ruled with just as much power and influence as the men. Okay. Now, part one, chapter four. Part one, chapter four. Um, but before I get into that, the author he suggests society perceptions of female rulers. That's the reason why I disagree with him. In ancient Egypt, while women held significant roles, the concept of a female pharaoh was unprecedented. This is what he's saying. This is what he's implying. So Sobekneferu's adoption of full royal titulary, traditionally reserved for male rulers, was a strategic move to solidify her authority. So yeah, she she was female pharaoh and she was confirmed, but the author was like, she may have been a placeholder. But get this though, get this in the same chapter on page 31, some scholars such as Nicholas Grimal have concluded that Sobekneferu's rule ended in violence. Wait a minute. So, 'cause why was her reign so brief? What happened to her? And then we're going to get into some details as far as the aftermath as to what happened to her monuments and other things. Let's go. Okay, part two, part one, chapter four, the woman behind the Pharaoh. I like this because we always we get caught up on the image or the symbol of that person, and we forget that they were a person. We forget that they were individuals. And so, but we learned that the cause of her we learned that the reason why some of these pharaohs had to do that was to appease the populace. Okay, so only a handful in chapter four, only a handful of monuments remain from Sobekneferu's reign. There are some reliefs and inscriptions mentioning her that were found either at the site of the labyrinth at Harawa or elsewhere in Egypt. And these we look at shortly. We'll look at them shortly. Other than that, there are just a few pieces of statuary that can help us learn something about her character. So there's not that many. You know, Ramses II, he had statues everywhere. Okay, he said, "Look, I don't care what y'all think. I'm him." Right? But Sobekneferu only had only a few uh, statues. So the best statue of Sobekneferu is found in Paris, made of quartzite. It is today headless, with the lower half of the statue completely missing. That's the reason why I'm I'm starting to believe something happened to her. Okay, because whenever somebody's reign ends abruptly, yeah, it was some aftermath. We're not talking about weathering and thousands of years later it came out like this. I believe that as soon as they put her in the ground, they was tearing her statues up. Okay, how do I know that? It's because they did it to Hatshepsut. Okay, get this. With her close association with Sobek, it could very easily have been blamed for her what happened to Egypt, because there was some issues in Egypt from when it came down to the Nile. It was a drought happening, so therefore, when the drought is happening, there's no you can't farm, you can't produce, so it is her fault. We got to deal with her, right? And so, what might have happened to Neferu to cause her untimely death after the 4 years in the throne should be understood and acknowledged that some female pharaohs who came after her ended their reigns under quite tragic circumstances. Most of the female pharaohs, even though some of the male pharaohs of Egypt, they got that work too. But it's just ironic that most of the female pharaohs, our queens, were handled differently and wrongly. Okay, so think about it. Hatshepsut's reign, in chapter one, we talked about that. She was erased from all official records. How about this? Get this. Nefertiti's reign. She came up missing. I'm gonna say it. She came up missing, bro. Seriously. Okay. These folk, I'm the more I read about ancient Egypt, I learned that these folk did some things. It wasn't just Hotep all the time. Okay. So Nefertiti, she came up missing. Um, it's so many things that was happening, right? So this statue was towed up. They towed this statue up. So, despite its fragmented condition, we can see that Sobekneferu is wearing the familiar Nimes headdress. Okay, very traditional. It's pleated lappets of which rest on his shoulder. This is the same royal headdress present on the Heru Im Aket or the Great Sphinx. So you see there's some similarities with this royal headdress. Okay, but there's a reason why she's doing it. She's telling you, hey, I am the king now. I am the ruler now, right? And so it's very clearly that the statue's present state was highly suggestive that people deliberately smashed it at some point in its history. Okay, let's go. Now, if you look at it over this, however, is a masculine shindit kilt, and a knot that includes a starched triangular panel. Okay, so she is wearing something that's normally relegated or designed for men. So once again, she shows her desire to be portrayed in male form. And so Queen Hatshepsut wasn't the only one. All right, shout out to brother Ferguson. He asked that question last time, but yeah, Queen Hatshepsut wasn't the only one who in certain instances, at certain times and situations, decided to put on that male persona. Okay, okay. So because we're talking about the woman behind the pharaoh, okay, she had to do certain things. She had to play her cards right. Okay, she had to handle business. So let's go around the monarch's neck. Okay, and we'll get to that in a second about the neck part. But we have so then we have the belt of the kilt ending below her breast line, a deliberate attempt to emphasize her femininity. Okay, it's showing that hey, yeah, I'm gonna heist this up so you can understand that yeah, I'm king, but I'm still a woman. Okay, now it is on the kilt's belt buckle that we find the inscription identifying the monarch. And so 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 people won't be confused. Okay, is this a dude or not? It says the daughter of his body, Sobekneferu, may she live like Ra forever. So it is in the inscription saying this is Sobekneferu, the daughter of his body, or his body basically means that's her father, Amen Imhet, the third. Okay. And so around the monarch's neck is a pendant and a long cord, which is identified and stylized representation of a pierced heart, which symbolize the Ab, meaning heart, which is one of the many aspects of the human soul. Okay. So everything they had on meant something. But the pierced heart, though, pierced heart. Hmm. Got to think about that one. Pierced heart. But now, so we have also, we have there this is different. This is the Berlin bust. Okay, it is gray and it's in Berlin, and just like the other one, you see her headdress. Although the style and appearance is different, it's little more like braided. Okay, but and it's starting at her upper forehead and it sweeps down backwards. So it's still the traditional headdress, but in female form. Okay, it's more like how our sisters have two braids or whatever going down the side. So the female form, and also if you notice the side view of because see that same bust, there's a side view sitting on the throne, and you can't really see it, but that I had to get the larger version of it. The scimitar, okay, symbolic of kingship. The motif in question, okay, is known as scimitar, meaning uniter, Tawi, two lands. So she is the ruler of the two lands. Okay. And what they was trying to say, um, like in chapter 2, they was trying to say and imply that Memphis was that connection of Upper and Lower Egypt. Okay, the first place that Menes founded. And we also saw in chapter 2 the earliest kings of the 12th dynasty would appear to have a concerted attempt to move the place of meeting between the two lands to its old seat in Memphis. So they tried to move the seat of power a few times. They tried to do that. But no matter who you are, you had to have the Simatawi. You had to be the uniter of two lands, no matter if it was in Thebes, if it was in Memphis or Men-Nefer, you had to have that symbol, and people, and they had to deal with it. They had to be okay with that. Okay, so um, basically, chapters 3 and 4 it provides a comprehensive analysis of her rise. Okay, and so it highlights the complexities of her ascent and internal political dynamics. Because the thing is, yeah, that she was Team Sobek, but Memphis was Team Ptah, and of course, Thebes was Team Amun. It gets different. Okay, it gets different. Right now, the ascension of the queens of ancient Egypt. We're going to talk about the royal lineage real quick, the marriage to the pharaoh, the role of the priesthood, the queenship. We're going to answer these questions, and we got some shout outs. So we still got that. So in ancient Egypt, one of the most advanced and enduring civilizations of the ancient world, with a structured monarchy that placed a great significance on divine rulership. All right. While the pharaoh was the supreme ruler, queens played a crucial role in ensuring the stability and continuity of the throne. Far from being consorts and the king's woman, okay, they held political, religious, and ceremonial authority with even the entire nation. Some queens, such as Hatshepsut and Sobekneferu, went beyond their traditional roles and assumed full powers of a pharaoh, challenging gender norms and leaving a lasting legacy of Kemetic history. All right, so royal lineage and bloodline. Now, ancient Egyptian queenship is largely determined by the lineage and the bloodline, okay? As the legitimacy of the rule, which is closely tied to divine ancestry and hereditary succession. So Egyptian royalty adhered to the strict rules of kinship, often practicing royal sibling marriages, which I still think is weird. I said what it said. Okay, sibling marriages to maintain purity of their lineage. The practice seen in these dynasties, such as the 18th dynasty, ensured that power remained in the royal family. So queens often ascended to their position through birthright of marriage. Okay, they married the pharaoh, or they was born like Sobekneferu. She was born by right to be pharaoh if her brother died. Got a question about that though. So while Egypt was primarily a patriarchal society, the queen held a significant role, particularly the great royal wife. All right, the title reserved to for the chief queen. So Ramses the Great, Ramses the Second. He had a lot of wives, but his boo thing, his his favorite, his one is Nefertari. That dude loved that woman there. I tell you that. And she's from, to my understanding, she's from the South also. All right, let's get into it. The concept of divine rulership, where pharaohs were believed to be the earthly embodiments of Haru, further reinforced the queen's role as a divine figure. Now, the notion of Ma'at, the Egyptian principle of cosmic order, balance, and dictated that a legitimate queen must come from an unbroken line of royal heritage, ensuring the continuity and stability of the kingdom. So that woman had to be legit. Okay, that woman had to be legit. So, in cases where a ruling pharaoh lacked the male heir, powerful queens such as Hatshepsut and Sobekneferu took the role of a king, solidifying the importance of the royal bloodline succession. But before we get into that, don't forget to comment because we're gonna answer this question. So, we had a quiz review. According to the video, the Forgotten Pharaoh of Egypt. Who was the first female pharaoh of Egypt? Sobekneferu, Hatshepsut, Tayi, or Cleopatra? Now, a lot of you guys, a lot of you guys, it was split. Yeah, I don't think we got to get our life together. The first female pharaoh is Sobekneferu. Some people pick Cleopatra. I think y'all did that on purpose. Yeah. But I'm gonna ask, do you think your answer was valid, was correct? All right. So like and comment below. But yeah, the first official confirmed female pharaoh is Sobekneferu. And somebody asked a question. A lot of people asked the question. A whole alumni asked this question. Who was, speaking of bloodline, who was the real mother of King Tut? Yeah, yeah. We're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that. Who was the real mother of King Tut? Guess what? It's loading. Yeah, we're gonna talk about it. The DNA, dynasties, and deception. The hunt for the true mother of King Tut. Yeah, we're gonna talk about it. I'm already putting it together and everything. The fam asked for, they want to know who was his mama. All right. So we're gonna talk about that because that got interesting. Okay, because the more you read, the more you find out. You see what I'm saying? So that's gonna be coming soon. Now, the marriage to the Pharaoh. Okay, marriage to the Pharaoh, to the ruling Pharaoh is the most common way a woman can become queen. The Egyptian system of royal marriages was unique in that it often involved uh, consanguineous consanguineous unions. Okay, basically it was based on her. It was her consent. She had to agree. Okay, you couldn't just say, "Hey, woman, you my wife." All right, it had to be her consent, particularly between being weird again, brothers and sisters, to preserve the divine right of kingship. But is that true? Because I'm reading that some weren't related. Okay. What do you guys find out? Okay. Like and comment. Now, while polygamy was common among Egyptian rulers, like I mentioned about Ramses and Nefertari, the great royal wife was the primary queen and wielded considerable influence over court affairs. Yeah. So now, strategic marriages also played a role in political alliances, both domestically and internationally. The Egyptian pharaohs occasionally married foreign princesses to forge diplomatic relations, though these women rarely become principal queens. Instead, queens of Egyptian bloodlines, particularly daughters of previous rulers, were favored. Okay, so that's the reason why I want to know. Okay, was Nefertiti King Tut's mama? Because as we know, as I mentioned before, she came up missing. All right, and to my understanding, she may have had a nice family, but she wasn't that fam. She wasn't from that family. Okay, so instead, queens of Egyptian bloodlines, particularly daughters of previous rulers, were favored. Now, this ensured continuity within the royal family and reinforced the legitimacy of the ruling dynasty. Yeah, this is what I'm hearing. I heard Queen Nefertiti, that was an arranged marriage. I think it was a political move. I think it was a chess move. I think they had to make something happen, make something shake, to make sure that Akhenaten was legit. All right. So what do you think? Okay, comment below. Now, the queen's status was not merely ceremonial, right? It wasn't just symbolic. She often played a crucial role in religious rituals, governance, and succession planning. And succession planning, okay? Because who was his mother? Who was Akhenaten's mother? Queen Tai, right? So she was still alive during this time. So I got questions, all right? So as the wife of the pharaoh, the queen partook in temple ceremonies, particularly those related to fertility and rebirth, which were essential in sustaining the authority of the ruler. Okay, so in some cases, when the king passes away, the queen would marry his successor to maintain the legitimacy of the rule, a practice that can be seen in the marriages of Aksunamun following the death of King Tut. All right, so we've seen it happen, and so this has nothing to do with anything, but this is one of my favorite images. Okay, I'm just saying, if she were white, they would have made her lighter. You understand? This picture is one of my favorites, showing a king and queen side by side. She's not behind him; she is equal to him. Okay, this is Queen Nefertari, almost Nefertari. That is her husband, King Amos. Okay, this is in the 18th dynasty. Okay, she was the daughter of Sage Ninra. Okay, Sage Ninra, Tau, and Ahotep. So she came from royalty also. So, but this is one of my favorite pictures. Okay, Queen Nefertari. Like I said, if they wanted to make her light skinned, if they wanted to make her light skinned, they would have did that. All right. Let's, but you know me, I have a question. I have a question for the fam. Very important question. Very important question. Spicy food or mild food? Okay. Comment below. Like and comment below. Spicy food or mild food? I will tell you this. My house is divided. Me, I cannot take spicy food, okay? I can't do it. I don't need problems, okay? Like like and comment below. Spicy food or mild food? Y'all tell me. All right. Now, the role of the priesthood in queenship. All right. Now, the Egyptian priesthood played a pivotal role in the ascension and recognition of the queens as religious endorsement was crucial for any royal figure. The priests of Amun, particularly during the New Kingdom, held significant political influence and were instrumental in legitimizing the power of pharaohs and queens. The Oracle of Amun, a powerful religious institution, often affirmed the selection and role of a queen as seen in divine proclamations. Okay, but and we had that issue. We had the discussion, the priests versus the pharaohs. You know, we talked about that, and it got really interesting to know that either the priests were for the people, for the pharaoh, or sometimes for themselves. All right. Now, queens were often depicted as temple reliefs and inscriptions showcasing the divine favor and religious authority. The priesthood conducted sacred rituals that affirmed the queen's connection to the gods of the Neteru, particularly Heteru or Hathor and Isis or Aset, who were associated with queenship and fertility. The involvement of the priesthood was essentially evident during the reign of the powerful queens such as Nefertari and Nefertiti, who were closely associated with religious reforms and temple reconstructions. And so, in some cases, queens served as high priests. So that's the reason why I'm asking: is there an initiation process? Was there a process? Okay, you just say, "Hey, you queen." Was there a developmental process? Okay, queens served as high priestesses, acting as intermediaries between the gods and the people, reinforcing their divine legitimacy. It was always about legitimacy. Who were your parents or where are you from? Matter of fact, when I think about it, we still do that now. We still we still kind of get an understanding or an idea of a person. We kind of ask those questions as to where did they come from and who are their people. Okay, pretty interesting. Now, priests also played a role in the coronation ceremonies where they performed purification rites bestowed on the divine blessings upon the queen. These rituals reinforced the queen's legitimacy and sanctified her role as both consort of the pharaoh and semi-divine figure in her own right. Get this, queens such as Queens Tai, influence over had influence, um, and they had strong ties with the priesthood, allowing them to exert influence over religious state affairs. The symbiotic relationship between the priesthood and the monarchy ensured that queenship was not just a political position, but also a spiritual office. For Africans, it wasn't just a physical thing, it's always something spiritual. We seek the spirit in everything. Okay. What does it really mean? What is this really about? Okay. And so yeah, it wasn't just a political thing, it was a spiritual thing. So intertwined with the religious traditions of ancient Kemet. So, Queens of the South. Yeah, we're going to talk about. So, I had to go and do it. My top five queens that's coming up. My top five queens of the Nile Valley. That's going to be pretty interesting. I do have my top five, and it does. I don't care. I don't care what you say. It excludes Cleopatra. I don't care, you know. Shoot. All right, and we may get into my top five priestess of Egypt also. Subscribe and comment below. And so this is something else. So the queens of ancient Egypt were far more than wives of the king, right? They were pivotal figures in maintaining dynastic continuity, religious tradition, and political stability. So while most queens gained their position through marriage or birthright, a few exceptional women broke the barriers and ruled as the Insut Biti or pharaohs, shaping the course of Egyptian history. The priesthood played a pivotal role also in legitimizing their rule, and we'll get into all that. So, but before we go, we got some special shout outs really quick. Okay, Brother Mo, shout out to him. He's an alumni. Yaya Shabaka, peace, peace and blessings to Yaya Shabaka. Peggy Harrison, Meadow Netcher, Mama Louise, Lovely, Miss Evans, Baba Amin and the Uhuru Academy. Much love to him. Monica Pratt, Linnell Smith, Brother Will, Noel Taylor, and Zip Teppy Slim. You guys, some of you guys have added, you guys have added value to the discussion. Some of you guys are new subscribers. I really appreciate you guys for coming through. But check this out. We got some international shout outs. Shout out to the family Germany, Saudi Arabia, Canada, the UK, Kenya, Senegal, Italy, Trinidad and Tobago, Morocco, Nigeria, the Philippines. Man, we up. We are everywhere. But I'll tell you this: if I miss your country, I know you guys will let me know. Because I'm country as corn. So, but I'm glad that you guys came through and just hung with me for a minute. So we talked about chapters 3 and 4. We talked about the royal lineage and bloodline, the marriage to the pharaoh, the role of the priesthood in queenship, and we answered a few questions, gave a few shout outs. But what about wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Was there an initiation process? I didn't answer that question. I did that on purpose. So we're gonna get to part 2 next week. We're gonna talk about the initiation process. We're gonna talk about chapters 5 and 6, the cult of Sobek, and the have said mystery. Yeah, yeah, it got ignorant. Okay. And I'm really excited about this. All right. We're going to talk about the queens who became pharaohs and my top five. All right. So you just got through hearing King Cam Ujumbe Podcast, Ujube's message. And the message is the ascension of the queens of ancient Egypt. And if you want to explore or talk or listen to or learn about the forgotten pharaohs, female pharaohs of Egypt, the forgotten pharaohs of Egypt, we got a video for that. And if you want to get into the Queens of the South series, we got a playlist for that. All right. And I will talk to you later.